Last weekend in Kansas City, Missouri, the story was that a young, pregnant, unarmed black woman with her hands up in surrender had been shot multiple times by police in what was, implicitly, yet another example of racist, bloodthirsty cop murder, or at least attempted racist, bloodthirsty cop murder. This weekend in Kansas City, Missouri, the story is not that at all. In fact, it's the opposite in many ways. Depending on who you ask, though, the activists are still desperately clinging to the idea that the evidence in this case is now being faked by their own progressive allies in local government. It all started following a very familiar script: unreliable witness testimony, highlighted in uncritical local reporting, amplified on social media, inspiring activists to take to the streets and shout falsehood before any actual evidence had ever even emerged. On Friday night, May 27th, as published in the Kansas City Star, police approached a man and a woman in a van that was connected to a recent suspected carjacking. According to this witness, speaking with the Star, identified only as Shadanja, police approached, issuing orders to get out of the van. The man exited and ran, with officers then in pursuit on foot. The woman exited with her hands up, said the witness. Officers told her to get on the ground, but the woman said she was pregnant and could not. Shadanja says the woman backed away, never pulling a weapon, not even a stick. The woman then ran for 3 steps, and the police shot her 5 times. And then police put a noose around Shadanja's neck and poured bleach on her face and said this is a MAGA crime scene, and Shadanja had to go home to eat her sandwich. Not quite, but Shadanja says she asked police several times why they shot the woman, and the officers refused to answer. Shadanja started recording video, outraged that police were cuffing this woman shortly after shooting her.
They got her in handcuffs while they shot her, y'all. Why they shot her? They got her in handcuffs while they shot her, y'all.
She says the woman was cooperating and just got scared, and that's why police shot her. They love to smell the fear first.
The man ran. She was finna cooperate. She got scared. She ran down there. They shot her. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And thus, the claim was born. Unarmed, pregnant black woman with her hands up in surrender, hunted by racist police. AJ Plus pushed it. Occupy Democrats pushed it. BET, Linda Sarsour, a Democratic candidate for Arizona State House, and more. Fundraisers were promoted on the woman's behalf, pushing this unarmed, hands up and pregnant version of the story. And the protesters organized to demand justice before ever demanding the facts.
They're gunning down people who aren't threats down in the street.
We are tired of feeling like our deaths don't matter, our pain don't matter, our tears don't matter, our struggles don't matter. They do!
Doesn't our rage matter? Well, in general, no. Not just yours, but anybody's, because anger is not evidence or argument. But even if you want some sympathy, your rage does not matter as much as the truth does. And on that issue, it turns out their rage is at odds with it, not just possibly, but provably.
Until we were able to show them exactly what police and prosecutors say happened.
I see. How come the person yesterday said she didn't have a gun?
Because that person lied. That's why, which is a common occurrence among people invested in a particular story, not particularly in the truth. That still frame with the gun that the reporter presented was released Wednesday by the prosecutor's office, taken from an officer's body cam video at the scene to calm the unrest and correct false claims circulating in media. According to prosecutors, the actual version of events is this. The woman is 26-year-old Leona Hale. She and her male companion were identified by Kansas City, Kansas police as parties to an armed carjacking at some point prior. KCKPD provided a description and a license plate number which matched Leona Hale and the man in the van at this scene. Kansas City, Missouri police approached the van. The male driver ran and police pursued. He was later detained. Leona Hale exited the vehicle and ignored police commands, presenting a firearm. Police gave multiple verbal commands to drop the gun. She pointed at officers who fired 3 shots, striking her. In addition to the image, police also recovered her gun at the scene and currently have it as evidence. Hale actually survived the shooting. She remains at the hospital recovering, but she is now facing 3 charges and will likely face more, considering prosecutors haven't brought any charges related to the carjacking yet. And by all accounts, she was likely a party to stealing a car at gunpoint. But for now, her charges are resisting lawful arrest, unlawful use of a weapon and unlawful possession of a firearm. In other words, she can't legally possess a gun, which implies there's a history of criminal activity or some other past reason why she's a prohibited person. So unarmed, that's not true. Hands up, that's not true. And recall, the original story was that she's pregnant as well, but as of now, there's no reason to believe that's true either. Nobody has been able to confirm that claim.
Some say she was pregnant, something Fox 4 is still working to verify.
An officer with the Missouri State Highway Patrol says the claim that Hale is pregnant is dubious at best, though the information is protected by patient privacy laws. The only evidence for it is the witness claim that Hale said it, as though we should rely on the honesty of a carjacker as described by a witness who outright lied about what happened. And even before I finish making the video update, yep, confirmed bullshit. She is not pregnant according to a local reverend working with the family. But even if it is a few days later than the hysteria, the truth should put this one to bed, right? The gun pointing is on video, or at least a still frame from the video. There are now charges for possessing and pointing that gun. Surely this is not the outrage that you're looking for, activists. Except it is, apparently. If the initial screeching wasn't ridiculous enough, the double down is so tinfoily, it's sponsored by Reynolds Wrap. Andy No tweeted the still frame and the story, and a high-profile attorney and self-described former computer scientist Greg Doucette responded, claiming Andy had photoshopped the image because it appears Hale's ankle is missing. It's all green grass between her pant leg and her shoe. If you're going to Photoshop something, make sure you fill in both ankles, he says. Other activists speculate the item in the image is not in fact a gun, but actually a phone. Well, first of all, the image is a still frame taken from a body cam video, not a high quality photo. So sure, it may look weird, but a lot of strange effects can happen when you have quick motion compressed in a GoPro video. But even if you do think it looks weird, how is a missing ankle evidence that a gun was placed in? Was her entire body inserted into the image incompletely? Why would inserting a gun mean erasing an ankle? But more importantly, who did this supposed photoshopping? Because Andy No did not create this image. He got it from a release from the prosecutor's office, since confirmed as authentic by the mayor's office. The mayor has personally watched the body cam footage and confirms the gun's presence, his office says. So to believe this is all just a big fake, you'd have to believe it's not just one still frame that's been shopped, but the whole video, since the video will be presented as key evidence in a forthcoming trial. Either that, or you'd have to believe that prosecutors brought charges they can't substantiate at all, and police just lied about recovering a gun at the scene. And even if you want to say that police lie all the time, in the case of this video frame, it wouldn't be police lying. It would be progressive politicians abandoning their own ideological sympathies to perpetuate this conspiracy. The Kansas City mayor, who confirms the still frame in the video's authenticity, is a black Democrat who fancies himself a champion of bold police reform in honor of George Floyd. The prosecutor is a former Democratic state legislator who has supported civil rights groups in calling for investigation into the Kansas City Police Department for excessive use of force, and put forth an entire plan for criminal justice reform in honor of Michael Brown. So what's more likely, a secret plot among progressive politicians to betray their activist base for no conceivable gain, or maybe the activists just got this one wrong? At least some of those responsible for perpetuating the lies have since confronted them, partially, even if they are more squirmy about it than completely honest. The Kansas City Star, the paper responsible for pushing the hands-up, unarmed pregnant claims from the witness originally, has since put an update atop its story. Prosecutors say the woman, quote, had a firearm. No, they say she pointed it, and it's on video. That's what the charges are about. No additional note that almost everything that follows this new first paragraph in the original story is now complete bullshit. That Arizona State House candidate who circulated the story far and wide on Twitter now has a flashing red emoji siren update too. Turns out, he says, Leona Hale did in fact have a weapon when she was shot. 136 likes and 25 retweets for the update siren of truth. Meanwhile, 37,000 likes and 15,000 retweets for the original false claim. Not to mention, in both cases, it's not an update. An update generally adds information to a story. When prior reporting is completely invalidated, that calls for a correction and a retraction, not an update. As a final irony in this case, we won't get that full body cam video to put this story to rest for at least a little while, in part because of activist-supported police reforms. KCPD officers took the shots on Hale, and under KCPD policy, body cam footage can be released upon public records request, meaning it could have happened fairly quickly if a judge signed off on it. However, because of policy change in June 2020, KCPD no longer investigates its own police shootings. Activists and politicians wanted an independent law enforcement agency to do that. So this case is being handled by the Missouri Highway Patrol. MHP does not release video until the investigation is finished, and police shooting investigations often take several months for the agency to complete. But actually, even if accidental, that delay is almost certainly to activist benefit anyway, because that video will show that the whole initial story was a complete lie. And so without it, activists can hang on to those lies and keep cashing in for a few more months, pushing the theory that this is all some complex progressive betrayal in cahoots with Photoshop, and not the inconceivable reality that there are sometimes criminals who police deal with properly. It's a much simpler explanation, but yes, I'm sure soon we'll all learn how exactly a phantom ankle proves us all wrong. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Gab. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.